right, so welcome to this episode of the Big Blue in the Bronx podcast, episode number 56. Obviously, we got some stuff to talk about today. The recap for Thursday's game was on Friday, so we have a couple more extended stuff to talk about. I have Jordan Levine back on again. We're going to discuss two early draft prospects to possibly look out for next year. And we're also going to talk about the trade deadline, and I'm going to introduce mini statistics coming off of last week's loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. Jordan, how's everything going?
Everything's good, my man. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. So to come out with, I would say, let's see, six analytics. Use them how you want. Dalvin Tomlinson, Giants defensive tackle, ranks 10th in run stop win rate, 39%. That's among defensive tackles in the NFL. Will Hernandez, he ranks 7th in run block win rate among offensive guards in the NFL with 75%. Giants defense ranks 31st in pass rush win rate, 3%. 31st in the league. Giants defense also ranks 19th in run stop win rate at 30%. The Giants offensive line, they have not been good this season. They're 31st in pass block win rate at 45%. Meanwhile, the run block win rate is ranked 17th, 70%. So, obviously, take analytics with a grain of salt, but at the same time, the stats on here do complement what's on film. Hernandez is good at run blocking. Tomlinson's good at run stopping. And the Giants online hasn't done the best in pass blocking, as well as we saw Andrew Thomas's struggles going back to the Eagles game. Jordan, what was your evaluation on that game? Like, not so much evaluation, but just like thoughts coming off of that game.
I mean, well, one of the things that I said I was preaching all of last week leading into Thursday Night Football, one of the things I was preaching that the Giants needed to do to win the game was to not gain too much confidence, not let the defense gain too much confidence and let their guard down. Obviously, they needed to do that coming in, which they did, but at the end of the game, they completely, obviously, Ingram had the drop, and that was something to be said on its own. I know you feel strongly about that, but the defense kind of did let the team down with those two quick scores at the end, penalties and things like that. So
and
that's the reason they lost in the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Joe Judge said, they wouldn't have been in that position without Evan Ingram, so you can't blame the whole game on him, but the defense does need to make those stops.
Yeah.
And the penalties kill them.
What was I going to say? So it's been 4 straight seasons in Philly that we've blown a lead. And if you want to, you can count the one in 2017, which was only a touchdown. But 2018, you had, I think it was like a 16-point lead. You had a 14-point lead last year. Now you have, an 11-point lead this year. And they still blow it. And, the defense, again, it's the divisional games, it seems to be. Especially the Washington game and the Cowboys game. Cowboys game was kind of similar in the same situation because Ryan Lewis got beaten deep downfield. It was Michael Gallup against the Cowboys, and I think it was John Hightower this game as well. So he's not the number 2 corner. And, as much as improvements he does make against certain teams, he's just not the guy. And that's where I kind of fault Dave Gettleman, but I also, I don't know where to fault it at the same time because you did sign Logan Ryan, but at the same time, you were playing some other people like Madre Harper, and you were also playing Corey Ballantyne because the injuries you had, Adrian Colbert and Darnay Holmes were out, so what were the Giants supposed to do?
Right. Well, I mean, I think that in general, the CB2, cornerback 2 position for the Giants is a gaping hole. And, I mean, I guess you can somewhat blame Gettleman, but, I mean, the whole DeAndre Baker incident happens after the draft. And, you just don't know what's going to happen with him. Actually, I'm not sure if it happened after or before the draft, but either way, I mean, that's a first-round pick from last year. You're supposed to be locked up at the cornerback position. You're absolutely right. Jordan Lewis has been awful, and they can't really figure it out. They were trying it with Yidom for a little bit, and they really can't. There's no one there that's making the plays. I mean, Jordan Lewis, not only did he let up the big throw to Hightower, it was also he was the guy who had the penalty on that 3rd and long.
Yeah, and he'll get the sack. Yeah, and he's been, but I'm gonna say he's been better than Yidom and Ballantyne would have been. But I'm just saying, Ryan Lewis, he's still not it. He's still not it at corner. And the way the Giants can attack that is by draft picks. And trade deadline is actually next Tuesday. So let's get into that. Now, obviously, the talks have been going. Is Evan Ingram going to get traded? He's one of my top candidates to be traded. I'm going to do an article on that at Last Word on Sports, and I also assigned somebody else at All New York Sports to do a similar article. So Evan Ingram, he comes on my list number one, not just because of the game he had against the Eagles. And I didn't really believe it when everybody was trying to hype him up. Oh, Evan Ingram is, he's going to have a good game against the Eagles. I didn't believe it. The Eagles have shit linebackers. They have, I think it was Alex Singleton, Duke Riley, and Nathan Jerry. They didn't play all that well, except, Nathan Jerry. He beat Andrew Thomas on a sack, which was not really appetizing to look at. But, everybody's expecting, Evan Ingram, he's going to have a big game. I didn't expect him to do that because I know what Evan Ingram is in certain situations like that when he's poised to have a big spot. And guess how many drops he already has this year?
I'm not sure of the exact number. Definitely multiple, though.
More than the last 2 years, almost more than the last 2 years combined. He has 5 drops already.
Crazy. I mean, that drop on Thursday night was unacceptable.
Yep. And his catch rate is actually the second lowest of his career. And the lowest of his career was actually his rookie year where he had, I don't know how many drops. He had 3 last year. He had 3 the year before. He's got 27 career drops in his career since 2017. That's, I believe, second in the NFL. And I think Travis Kelce might be on that list as well, but you recognize who's Travis Kelce and who's Evan Ingram. And, it just shocks me that the Giants don't want to trade him and they think he's a valuable piece. Look, I get it that, going through 3 different coaching staffs, it's not easy, but he has not made the transition. His run blocking has not gotten better. When he's poised in different situations to match up against safeties or linebackers, he hasn't done that. And also to note that everybody's saying, switching wide receiver. He won't get separation on a cornerback if he won't get separation on a linebacker. So, these are the things. And again, crucial situations like Thursday night, this is why I don't think he's going to last in the Big Apple, but, let's see what the Giants do with him. And, if Dave Gettleman stays, which I don't think he will, he might give him another chance. If he doesn't stay, I see the Giants getting rid of Evan Ingram.
Yeah, I kind of hear you there. Listen, I'm definitely not a fan of how Evan Ingram has played in his tenure with the Giants. He's either been injured or playing poorly. I do believe, however, that the reason that he's probably one of the more hated guys, even though he's clearly the best skill position on offense when Saquon's hurt, but the reason being that he's so disliked and there's such a distaste for him amongst the fans is because there's so much hype around him to be this guy, this all-pro guy who's like the focal point of our passing game. But in reality, I mean, he's one of the only weapons that Daniel Jones is throwing to. They're going to show a lot of attention towards Evan Ingram on the weekly basis. At the same time, if Daniel Jones isn't playing well, how is Evan Ingram going to play well? You know what I mean? The offense needs to play well as a unit. You can't really blame certain guys for certain things. Yeah, that's where I feel. I think that they are going to keep him unless they get an offer that blows them away. Maybe if they could somehow get a second-round pick. I don't see it, but if they could somehow get something like that.
I would say a 4 or 5 maybe.
That's the only circumstance where they'd give him up. I do think that I'd probably put Kevin Zeitler. I did see him on your list, but I'd probably put him as the number 1 option just because of the age factor, and they still are paying him a solid amount of money. And I think that the Giants do like guys like Shane Lemieux out of Oregon. I think that they do want to give him a chance. You never know with a new GM, but we're not there yet. So I would say Kevin Zeitler.
Kevin Zeitler is actually on my list. You're right about that, Jordan. And to come to Evan Ingram's defense, now listen, obviously I've critiqued him, especially today. But it's kind of like a Darius Slayton factor, except Darius Slayton, I think he's better than him. But at the same time, everybody poised, Darius Slayton, he's going to have a, Monday night, primetime Slayton. Everybody was coming out with these posts on social media. I wasn't necessarily, on it. Not that I don't have confidence in him. It's just, when he's the only weapon out there, you can't be pressuring him to have, 100-yard games every game. He's not a number 1 wide receiver. That's why I say maybe target one free agency, maybe target one in the draft. Because we don't know what Sterling Shepard's going to be, with all the injuries he's had in his career. Evan Ingram, we don't know. And, Golden Tate, he might just get traded or maybe even cut in the offseason.
I mean, right. Well, that comes down to what I said before. It's the expectation out of Evan Ingram. You can expect a lot from Darius Slayton at the end of the day. still a fifth round pick out of Auburn. He's not the guy you use the 19th overall pick on, or was it 23rd? I'm not sure, one of the two. But like that, it just comes with the expectation. That's why people are hating on Evan Ingram so much more. He's supposed to be that guy.
And my next candidate, he might not be traded. He might be traded as Golden Tate. Now, obviously he was signed to a big contract, maybe about, I would say, I don't know how much long actually after Odell Beckham was traded, because I think that was mid-March that he was traded, and then a couple of days later they maybe assigned Tate. I think it was like 4 days or something like that, but I'm not too sure about that, but whatever. So he has not impressed this year at any standard. Now, he's usually a big yards after catch guy, and last year he averaged, I believe, was like 5.8. Now he's at 2.8. So, he's clearly aging. Listen, do I think he's a weapon? Yeah, when he ever provides. But at the same time, he's aging. I don't think he's going to live out his full contract. I don't think he ever was going to live out his full contract, which was 4 years when he was 31 years old. And, again, might want to target a wide receiver in the draft long term. And again, Slayton's not your only guy. So you kind of have to think, if you're Dave Gettleman or the scouting department or maybe even a new GM, is an aging wide receiver a product to put around Daniel Jones, or do we trade him at the deadline, maybe get him for a 5th, 6th, maybe even 7th round pick to a contending team? Maybe something like the Saints, because they just lost Emmanuel Sanders, I think, and they also.
I could see. I could see him. I could see them trading Golden Tate, but again, I don't know how easy it's going to be to find a suitor. The only thing I can think of is a team at the top of the board that's kind of missing that one extra guy. But I mean, I'd say Baltimore. Baltimore just went ahead and signed Des Bryant to the practice squad, so I don't think they're going to try and go after another aging receiver, especially not give up any draft picks. So he might end up just sticking around, and maybe they'll buy him out or trade him or something. I don't know, but he's also he's just good to help Daniel Jones progress as much as he possibly can with what he's got. Obviously, I'm going to touch on it a little bit later. Obviously, I have my top 3 way too early draft prospects. If the draft were tomorrow later, one of those is a receiver. So I guess we'll talk about that.
Maybe the Browns question mark? They just lost Odell. I mean,
maybe the Browns. I mean, are they in a position that they think they're going to win their division right now? That they're going to go ahead and trade away a draft
because
pick?
They're what, 4-2?
Did get blown out. They're 5-2 now, but they did get blown out by the Steelers. So, and they've also got Baltimore, who's sneakily 5-1. So I mean,
nobody thinks that. And Baltimore and Pittsburgh go at it next week. So
they do.
Something to look at it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the bye week. It was actually supposed to be this past week, but
because of
the whole Tennessee thing, they switched it up.
Yeah, so that's my evaluation, or at least my thoughts on Golden Tate.
Zeitler.
Now it's to Kevin Zeitler. I'm kind of indifferent on this one, and I wrote about this in my article. I said, a lot of beat writers are bringing up the same point. In today's NFL, everybody has to admit that the O-line value is going down, and it's so hard to find a good offensive lineman like Kevin Zeitler. He's never made a Pro Bowl, but he's always been solid. If you take a look at his stats, he allowed only 11 pressures and he only had 1 penalty last year, and he didn't give up any sacks, at least from the stats I got. And it's a mixed feeling for me, because yes, you get the value. You trade him to an O-line needy team, maybe even a contender, but I don't honestly think that's maybe full in the package. Maybe the Bengals will take him back because their offensive line is not the greatest, but at the same time, when you get Matt Parrott some reps at right tackle, or you get maybe, I don't know, at some circumstance, Andrew Thomas reps at right tackle, do you really want a rookie right guard and Shane Lemieux in there? Someone who really hasn't been in there, and he's only played, 2 snaps? They're at fullback. So right. Is that really something you want to do, especially with the O-line talent decreasing in the league?
Right. So what I was going to say about Kevin Zeitler is that I think his contract goes beyond this coming off season. Am I correct?
Yeah, he has this year, and he has 2021. 2022, he's a free agent, and his cap hit next year, I believe, is like $10.5 million. I'm not too sure on that.
Right. So I mean, I think just for the sake of Daniel Jones, I think that they're not going to trade him at the deadline, but I could definitely see an offseason move. We'll take a late round pick for him. He's getting old. You know what I mean? Another year or two, he's going to start to regress. I'm sure of it. And he'll probably end up hitting that Nate Solder area where you can't really get much out of him, so you just end up having to eat the money. So I could see them trading him to a team that, like, a good team that has a hole or something like that. But I don't think they'll do it midseason just for the sake of Daniel Jones. But there's also another draft option that I've got on there is offensive line. So there's many combinations and possibilities the Giants can do.
Now, relating to that, in a weird scenario, let's just say the Giants take Penei Sewell next year out of Oregon.
Right. So
Let's see if they place him next to Shane Lemieux, whatever tackle side they put him at. Because who knows what's going to happen with Thomas or Parrott. But Parrott showed promise, even though he struggled. Like, I know the one play where it was a sack on Daniel Jones. He was mostly coming from Thomas's side, but Parrott also had some pressure there, too. I think he was facing Brandon Graham, if I was not mistaken. So, it's going to be interesting.
I mean, in my opinion, I'm a very strong believer in the fact that Dave Gettleman is one of the types of guys that Giants fans are going to hate him while he has the job, and maybe 3 years later we're going to love him because he really has added a plethora of O-line talent that can be developed into something very good. So obviously, I guess we'll move into my way too early draft options with this, or
we have one more. Wait, hold on, let me check.
I have
two more candidates to go, and then we're gonna
trade deadline. All right, fine. So okay. I'll just hold that thought for later, and I'll get back.
Yeah, just keep that in your mind. Next one's Dalvin Tomlinson. Now, Tomlinson, his rookie year, he wasn't that bad. 2018, he didn't even have a quarterback hit. That's how bad he regressed. Then you look at 2019, he had the best season of his career, 13 pressures, 3.5 sacks, 5 quarterback knockdowns, and 3 hurries. He's a guy that will stop the run, obviously. And then, he's a motor in the passing game when it comes to rushing the passer. He's already got 1 sack on the year. That was on Andy Dalton. He's got 4 pressures, so that was half of what he got in 2018, which is very promising. They played him actually, at least according to Pro Football Reference, as a defensive end or a defensive interior, but now they're placing him more at the nose tackle position. And it's kind of a similar feeling to the one I have in Kevin Zeitler. Tomlinson, I think he's a good player. I think he's a solid defensive player. Problem with him is that Dexter Lawrence is emerging into something. You still got B.J. Hill, who's rotating. I don't know what they're going to do on Austin Johnson. He's shown some flashes, but I'm not going to say, he's going to be the best defensive lineman. You also have Leonard Williams, who is on a franchise tag, and he's going to be looking for, some big money and a big paycheck next year. He's already got 3 sacks this year. I think his highest amount of sacks in his career, I believe, was 5 or 7. So that's something for him. And a lot of Giants fans, hated on him coming into this year. I wasn't the biggest fan of him. But the first how many games, he's racked up some pretty good stats for an interior defensive lineman that was pretty much a bust with the Jets. And my kind of question was, and I asked my brother, and I tease my brother with this all the time, I says, look, Leonard Williams, last year, he put up half a sack with the Giants. How come he couldn't do that with the Jets? And, they're better in defense, and they were a better coverage team, because you could say, it was a coverage sack, but they also, meaning the Giants, they blitz more. So that's got to be interesting as well. But, for the Tomlinson topic, it's going to be very dicey, and it's also not Dave Gettleman's pick. It was Jerry Reese's back in the second round of the 2017 draft.
Right. I mean, I see it. I do see it. That's what's sad, because I do love Dalvin. He's a captain on the defense. He's although he had a bad sophomore slump, that happens to guys, and he's been really good. And he's kind of been that gelling glue, which has enabled guys like Leonard Williams, B.J. Hill, who rotates in, Dexter Lawrence to grow. And another thing is that he's also the only guy on the defensive line that was actually with Patrick Graham back in 2017 when he was the defensive line coach for the Giants. So his rookie season, when he played pretty good for a rookie, when he played pretty well for a rookie, Patrick Graham was his coach. They know what each other like to do, and he's really the meshing glue. That's why they named him the captain. So I don't know, but the thing is that it will be a dicey situation. The Giants aren't going to have that much cap. They're probably going to need to spend some on the offense, or at least a cornerback too.
Nate Solder's contract rolls over, so that's not going to be a good thing.
Exactly. So they might not be in a position where they're able to keep Dalvin. So Yeah, it's definitely something to worry about. But I don't know. Maybe I could see them honestly trading Hill before they trade Dalvin, even though Dalvin will command more money.
See, I really don't see that. I could, but like, you know, what's like what value gonna get for Hill, and like how much is his contract worth? So that's
Right.
like that's kind of where I am about it. I don't see them trading BJ Hill in all honesty, but
Yeah.
you know things
Yeah,
have
it does
happened
still
before
leave
that
the
have been
problem of money.
unexpected.
It does still leave the problem of the money. Yeah.
And before we go into my fifth candidate and my final candidate, somebody said this about maybe I think a year ago when our pass rush was like starting to evolve a little bit. The Giants' defense is not one you plan against. Now, the defensive line in specifics is not one you plan against, but is one to be underrated and dangerous. That's what I see with this defensive line because whether it comes from good linebacker playing whatever.
I, you know what I'd say? Sorry, just to cut you off, but I basically get the gist of the question. I'd say that they are the type of defense that narrative would fit when you're talking about the general eye. We're talking about the media, the fans, the reporters. The general eye, yes. But if you look back and you go back to I think week 4 or whatever it was when they played the Rams in LA, this Giants defense might be underrated by the fans and the media, but they're definitely not underrated by the league. Everybody knows that Joe Judge runs a good system, and he's gets under all cylinders of the ball, and it's Belichickian style defense. Everyone knows that, and the numbers have shown the Giants have been a good defense this year. I think if you look back to that week when they played the Rams, Sean McVay said, like they asked him like what he's planning about, how he's going to stop this, and this, and he was just like, man, this defense is tricky. Like they're a good defense, and it showed. They did hold the Rams. I certainly think that they might be underrated by the fans' eye, but definitely not amongst coaches in the league. I think they absolutely are a team that coaches plan for.
I think it was only 200 yards or 190 that we held Jared Goff to, and he had like so many good games up to that point. And my fifth candidate is Sterling Shepard. Now, personally, Shepard's one of my favorite players. He's been here since 2016. He was an elite, I would say elite for Giants type, the weapon for Eli.
The last guy that's around from
Yeah,
when Eli was playing decently.
from a winning team,
Right.
winning Giants team to be
Right.
specific.
Right.
But the problem is, when he's on the field, he produces. I haven't really heard that much criticism when it comes to him. It's not like an Evan Ingham sort where it's like, he's not production. Production on the field with him isn't very good. When you're supposed to really rely on him. But Shepard, when he's on the field, he produces. We saw, looks like that turf toe wasn't even affecting him, and
Listen,
just with him, it's just like he's one of my fan favorites, and like I might be running out of words here. It's just like I don't know, but you could get good value for him.
I mean, you probably could get solid value for him. And this is what I have to say about Sterling Shepard. As a Giant fan, it obviously hurts to think about moving on from Sterling Shepard. But because he's the last guy, as you say, from an era of like happiness and good memories. But if you look at it closely, he's the type of player. Well, first of all, he's injury prone. Second of all, he has decent value. You can always get a solid pick or something out of him. He to me, there's like a certain class of players like Sterling Shepard. It's the Jamison Crowder, the Sterling Shepard, the Golden Tate, the Randall Cobb, the journeyman who kind of just moves around from team to team. Everyone can use him. He's that third option slot guy on a good team. To me, that's what Sterling Shepard fits as. Now, if he can stay healthy all the time and not miss 2 weeks at a time here and there and here and there and here and there, then I could say he's even better, and maybe the Giants should look to keep him as that third guy. But I don't know. I just feel like that's the type of role that he plays. So I could see them trading him as well if it could get them more picks. The Giants need as many picks as they can get, especially with a new GM, which is likely to be the case.
And they only have 5-6 picks going into next year. I didn't even realize that. So they
Right.
will need to trade somebody at the deadline. Actually, now it's like 6 because the Marcus Golden trade. But with the Shepard thing, obviously, when he's on the field, he produces. When he's off the field, obviously, he doesn't. And again, we saw the flash of him when he got 6 catches for 59 receiving yards and a touchdown against the Eagles. That's what he can be. So let's move into our too early draft discussion about prospects. I'll let you go first because this was your whole entire idea, but I actually have some observations of my own and why.
So I mean, I guess if we overlap with ideas, we'll share them. But I basically have if the draft were tomorrow, where are the Giants picking? They pick second overall, which means that they'll probably be able to get any player outside of Trevor Lawrence, who will probably be going to the Jets if the draft were tomorrow, who pick first. So Giants and the Jets are the top of the board, and the Giants likely aren't looking to pick a quarterback. So second pick is really the best they can be at, the best spot they
And you're
can
not
be
picking Justin Fields. I don't see them doing that
You're not picking Justin
because
Fields. If they're going to pick a quarterback,
he's not a generational talent
I think we're talking about it. Yeah,
Lawrence is.
I think we're going to talk about it at the end, right? I think the whole Trevor Lawrence idea. So I didn't include him in this. But if the only guy, even if they were going to draft a quarterback, which I don't think they will, would be Trevor Lawrence, nobody else. So I have them three options, all very different options. My first option, I'll tell you all of them real quick, and then we'll go through them each in depth. So my first option is Penei Sewell, tackle out of Oregon. My second is Jamar Chase, the wide receiver from LSU. And lastly, I got Micah Parsons, the linebacker from Penn State. So just to delve into it right away, let's go with Sewell, the tackle. I mean, you can never really take too much O-line. I think if Dave Gettleman was still picking here, I think Sewell's probably the pick. But, just with the low-functioning play of Andrew Thomas, Matt Parrott, you got him on the bench kind of playing decent when he comes in. They really will have options with three young tackles if they are to take this guy. He's got tremendous size, quickness, and power, all three of them, which is absolutely what makes future all-pro tackle. He's got the size there. Size is there. He's 6'6", 330. This guy's a beast of a man. I mean, he's huge. He's quick, nimble on his feet, all the works. I mean, so, just look at the Giants' position where you're at. You basically have 1 to 3 rounder picks, first to third round picks, right? Parrott being a third round pick, Thomas and Sewell both being top 10 picks.
And Hernandez as well, second round.
Hernandez as well, but I'm talking about the tackles. Yeah. But so if they could trade Zeitler and get another later pick, maybe a 4th, 5th rounder this summer, maybe they can move one of them inside. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be crazy to move one of your 3 tackles that you got in the past 2 years inside, and then you got a young core with Hernandez, Thomas, Parrott, Gates. You got Lemieux, who can move over to center if Gates plays badly. There's just a whole bunch of options, and that's why I say Dave Gettleman, you might hate him now, but in the future, he has been drafting very prominent young O-linemen that are talented. I mean, I think if the Giants can manage to get through 2 more years and they add some pieces, a couple minuscule pieces, they can be a good team if they keep the defense up and the offensive line continues to grow. So that's my first guy, Sewell. What are your thoughts on him?
I do agree with you there. And, I just don't think, now, I could be wrong, and college football's still going on. Obviously, he opted out, so we don't know what he's going to be, the coach is going to have to rely on.
And that's going to be a common theme this year. I mean, yeah. 2 of these guys, all 3 of these guys have opted out. So
yeah, the coaches are going to have to rely on 2019 film, so that's going to be interesting for them. But, if I'm looking at a glimpse right now, I'm not having the same conversation about Penei Sewell as I am Andrew Thomas. Now, everybody was saying, why didn't Gettleman trade down? Penei Sewell, I don't think is the guy you're going to be wanting to trade down for. Why? Because in the top 4, he will already be taken. Andrew Thomas wasn't that guy, in my opinion, because, Wirfs could have been gone. Becton might have been. What are the other offensive linemen? Jedrick Wills, he could have been gone. But, Sewell stands out to you as what he is in college right now. Listen, I haven't done any scouting. I don't, you just basically brought up his size and everything. So, I know a little bit about that. But the way everybody's, critiquing this guy in a good way, he's going to be a top 3, top 4 pick. So there's no need to trade down if the Giants are historically bad next year.
He's very big and he's very nimble. That's just basically the overall narrative of the guy. But yeah, I mean, listen, he's a good player. You're just giving yourself more options, even if you don't move one of them inside. Let's say one of them busts. Andrew Thomas hasn't been so good this year, maybe after 3 years, 2 of them will be good and you got 2 starting tackles for another 12 years to go. It's just, then you'll never have to draft a tackle. But it's just it's a good option to me. So I'm going to move to my second, which is Micah Parsons. Another guy, he opted out of Penn State. He was actually alongside Cam Brown for last year. at Penn State. He was clearly the best linebacker on the unit, though. He plays inside and outside. He can be looked at as an edge rusher, but he's great at blitzing up the middle. He's a great linebacker. He's also pretty big, 6'3", 244. He had 52 solo tackles. He does it all. I mean, he can pass defend. He had 5 passes defense in 2019, 5 sacks, 14 tackles for loss, 109 total tackles. I mean, he's just a very good player. I mean, last year you had 2 first-round talent-worthy guys at middle linebacker position, Kenneth Murray and Patrick Queen. Both of them have been playing well for the Chargers and the Ravens thus far. You also got Jordan Boykins. All 3 of those guys were really good. And as far as a middle linebacker goes, I know a lot of people are scouting him as an edge rusher. I have him as a middle linebacker who can do everything. But as far as that goes, I would have him higher than all 3 of those guys, in my opinion. I think he's better than all 3 of those guys. So he's a really safe pick. I saw Daniel Jeremiah had a pro comparison to Jalen Smith, which I think really does fit because he's one of those guys that just kind of covers the whole field, plays very well. He's not always great in coverage, but he makes up for it. If he overruns a ball or he undercuts something too early, he's very good at getting right back to the ball carrier and bringing him down for minimal gain. So I think he's just a very, very good option. And he can take a Giants defense that's already been pretty good. I know it's not the biggest need, but you're stacking on. That's what a guy like Micah Parsons, if he develops to a defense like the Giants have, you add a cornerback too, that could be one of the more elite units in the NFL.
Now, what I have to say on Parsons, he's on my list as well. Obviously, that would be covering inside linebacker 2 if you're putting in a fit. And obviously, you'd be lining up next to Blake Martinez. So it's, in my opinion, kind of like the cornerback 2 position. Now, I have 2 cornerbacks on my list. Patrick Surtain from Alabama. And I also have Sean Wade from Ohio State. Now, Surtain's going to be probably top 10, maybe top 20. But
probably. I also like Caleb Farley, I think.
Yeah. My thing is, everybody says, let's take the upgraded QB. And I'm not going to extend this thought to our QB discussion. But, the Giants are not in position, in my opinion, to just say, let's upgrade a quarterback. We don't need to upgrade anything else. It's just like fantasy drafting, in my opinion.
Yeah, of course.
And, everybody could say, that's your second inside linebacker position. You go later rounds. That's your second cornerback position. You go later rounds. No, because we've seen the impact of what the inside linebacker position does, whether it's the inside linebacker 2 position or the cornerback position. Ryan Lewis has been awful downfield this season, and also Devontae Downs is not an inside linebacker 2, and you have to let Cam Brown develop, who sometimes actually comes off the edge. And you also, David Mayo, he's just a tackling linebacker. He's been semi this year with coming off his injury, so,
I mean, yeah, and you also have to remember Parsons isn't just that middle linebacker. You can line him up on the edge for different packages. You can line him up against the tight end, no problem. I mean, he's just an all-around good player. I mean, he's a very good guy to have on the team. I don't think anyone would be that upset for too long if they took him because the guy's an NFL-ready prospect, and he's just a really good young player, explosive, I might say. So that brings me to my last guy, probably the sexiest pick. Probably the guy who the Giants fans will most likely want come April 2021 after Trevor Lawrence. And that's Jamar Chase, 6 foot, 210-pound wide receiver from LSU. He opted out. I have his 2019 stats here, obviously. He is probably just another reason, obviously receiver being a need, but another reason why this guy is likely to go in the top 5. Just because his 2019 tape tells you right away that he's good. You know what I mean? Tells you right away he's good to go. You don't have to be like, but is there the tape? Like, he's not like a promise guy. He's like, he already played extremely well and won a national title, and he was the number 1 target, actually, for Joe Burrow, not Justin Jefferson, who's been killing it for Minnesota. So in 2019, he had 84 catches for 1,780 yards. That's, I think, like 20 less catches than Jefferson, who played the slot, and 200 more yards. He's plays on the outside. He's a deeper guy. He had an average of 21.2 yards per catch, which is like crazy. So he's that like deep threat, but like he can just do a lot of things. He had 20 touchdowns, And also another thing to note: not only did they win the championship, and did he play better than other guys who have translated into success in the NFL, he also dominated the SEC, and he's not in the slot like Justin Jefferson. He's looking at the best corners in the SEC from last year's draft. I mean, this guy's impressive. He's a very, very good wide receiver option. And like I said, Darius Slayton, Giants fans will appreciate him so much more once he's finally running that deep option role, like Michael Gallup style, like he is for Dallas. This will give the Giants that Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup dynamic for Daniel Jones. And it will be fair because he'll have those guys and he'll have Ingram up the middle. If Shepard stays, those are weapons worthy for Daniel Jones. You can't have Darius Slayton and a banged up Shepard as your only options, though. So I really like Jamar Chase. I would not be upset if the Giants took him, although wide receiver is a position that is not necessarily needed to be taken in the first round.
Here's my take on it. Jamar Chase is number one on my draft board as of right now, but it also depends how Andrew Thomas does. Also depends what the inside linebacker position looks like going into next year. So my take is, you also have to evaluate. Now, you said Jamar Chase, possibly a top 5 pick. I don't think that all the way, only because of depending on the teams that are actually lined up in the top 5. Now, the Jets are horrible. They're probably going to be taking a quarterback, possibly. It depends, what they decide. Joe Douglas, if he's gone, if he's not gone. The Redskins / the football team, they're pretty bad right now. Will they be taking a quarterback? Ron Rivera, I just get the vibe that he really does not like Dwayne Haskins at all. Kyle Allen's not necessarily the future, but I think he is a backup quarterback.
I see Washington going with Fields or Lance. I think that's a lot.
And then you have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who aren't a good football team, could be going quarterback, but maybe might stay with Minshew.
Likely.
But yeah,
likely.
And you also
in my
have
opinion, the 3 teams that go quarterback in the top 10 this year, unless there are some unforeseen circumstances throughout the rest of this season. But to me, the 3 teams that go quarterback in the top 10 are the Jets, the Jags, and who was the last one? The Jets, the Jags, and the
football team.
The football team. Obviously, I could see certain things going certain ways. Maybe Chicago trades up. Maybe Minnesota trades up, depending on what happens there. Maybe Cleveland trades up. Like we said, their division's pretty
I don't think so, to be honest.
I don't think so either, but Baker Mayfield hasn't been good with for the weapons that he's had, and I could definitely see it if they end up going on a losing skid. They end up with a losing record. I can see that.
I kind of see the Bears, depends how they finish the year, but a lot of people say, they're the most overrated. What are they now? They lost yesterday, so their record's 5-2, something like that.
5-2.
5-2. So if they're a good team, maybe they make it to wild card round.
They're a great defense. That's what they are.
Yeah. If they make it to wild card round, maybe they do select a quarterback. Maybe they just sit at their spot and upgrade. The Vikings,
Trey Lance, maybe.
Yeah, the Vikings, I see them possibly finishing horribly and then maybe going in the top 5, top 7. So, and
Problem
then you
is
also
that Cousins got such a big contract over there that you almost don't want to move on for him, but you kind of have to because he's played terrible. He literally loses them games when he throws those 3 interception duds.
And then you also, have to think about the Giants. You can't just think about outside teams. You have to say, everybody, makes the assumption, it's not, a bad assumption. Giants should be 6-1 this year if it was a perfect world because they've competed literally in every game beside the 49er game. You can say also the first half of the 49er game.
Agreed.
Look at their second half schedule. They play the Ravens, they play the Browns, they play the Cardinals, they play the Seahawks.
They play the Bucks this week. So, everybody... 5 right there. Back on another 5.
I'm speaking mostly on the second half of the season because obviously it's after the bye. And, we saw what the Giants pulled in 2018 where out of the bye they just came, flat running until the Tennessee game and then their momentum kind of shot. But my point is, how much of a competitive team will the Giants be enough to win games when you have 4 opponents in the second half of the season that are over 500 and competing for their division? The Bengals, I don't think they'll be competing for their division, so I think we can win against them. Dallas, one of the other teams as well, because Andy Dalton or maybe even a backup quarterback like Ben DiNucci or someone else, I think they'll sign a free agent maybe. He's playing for them, so let's see. Their bye week is week 11. So they have 10 games before that, which means we have 6 games in the second half. So yeah, I pretty much covered everything. So, we'll see what the Giants, they're not beating Baltimore, but again, we'll have to see what comes out of the bye and what their record actually says. They could lose all the way up to the bye and be 3-13, and we'll see where their draft spot is. But in my opinion, I would not anticipate, let's just say the Giants finish 4-12, 3-13, maybe even 5-11. They're getting like maybe the 5th. Maybe they trade back to the 7th, get Jamar Chase. If they're really anticipated on a wide receiver, I don't think they will be, though, that much.
Listen, you hope that they don't have that miserable of a season, but if they do, I'm anticipating maybe they move a couple spots back to like a 5 or 6, and they will basically close in on one of these type of guys because the others won't be available. I don't think Sewell will be available outside of the top 3, nor do I know about Parsons just because he's the best defensive player in the draft.
And let me go on to my, I would say, raw top draft prospects that I didn't mention already, or maybe mention briefly. Again, I say raw because I don't know a lot about them. I don't know, what they look like. Well, I know what they look like, but, the height, the weight, and that stuff. So Greg Rousseau from Miami, defensive end, he's on my list.
Edge rusher.
You need a primary.
Style as much.
Sean Wade, Ohio State. Patrick Surtain, that's out of Alabama. You have Micah Parsons.
I like Surtain. Sorry, I'm just going to keep interjecting because you're just reading them out. I like Surtain. I don't think, unless the Giants magically somehow do end up going like 6-10 this season and having like a number 12 to 15 pick, I don't see them.
I don't see them doing that either.
I don't see them going to fill the CB2 need in the first round. More of a second round or free agency fix.
Obviously, Micah Parsons, who Jordan mentioned, is top of his list. And then you obviously got the quarterback. So let me fill in my insight as, this will lead into Jordan's view on Trevor Lawrence and all the tanking stupidity. That's the way I see it, at least. So, everybody's anticipating, or at least the hating Giants fans will say, oh, Daniel Jones is horrible. We need an upgraded quarterback. Well, your quarterback's not necessarily going to be the greatest quarterback if, big impact plays on the defense don't get fixed and you don't have enough weapons around Daniel Jones, and if you don't have an offensive lineman. This pertains to Penei Sewell as well. But the main emphasis I'm going off of is Jamar Chase, Patrick Surtain, and Sean Wade as well, and Micah Parsons, because, obviously we see a lot of nickel packages with Blake Martinez just in there, but we saw a lot of Devontae Downs last week, and I still don't like the guy. Ryan Lewis, he gets beat downfield, so, it's not just a fantasy draft where you're just saying, oh, let's take the best guy possible. That's Dave Gettleman's way of drafting, as much as he says it, as much as they evaluate it. Maybe they say, especially this year, oh, Andrew Thomas is the best guy we evaluated. Also to note that we need offensive tackle. So sometimes you need to go with need, sometimes the best player. But, listen, if Daniel Jones finishes, badly at the end of the season, I'll say, you know what? If we deserve a quarterback, if we really need to take one, fine. Take Trevor Lawrence. He's generally generational talent. I can't say that word for some reason. But, it'd be stupid to tank. Someone commented to me on Twitter and said, that's just a fan thing. Well, not necessarily in a lot of cases because, you saw a lot of trading away from the Dolphins last year, but they progressed as the season went on. So all this, tanking talk, and, if teams were actually do that, why would you cheat the system for a quarterback that you don't know how he's going to be in the NFL? Let's just say they cheat the system and they're like, let's just say 2-14, and Trevor Lawrence goes, you know what? Nah, I'm going to stay another year at college. But he probably won't, in my opinion, because, people have been going out there.
I don't even think he'll do it if the Jets are picking first.
We'll see. But, he said injury risk and stuff like that. But, again, if we truly deserve a quarterback, fine. But don't sit there and, want to tank for him. That's why I criticize fans' stupidity on that. You could want a quarterback, fine. But don't say, oh, tank. Yeah, because if you tank, you realize that you're going to be in more, in my opinion, of a regression than you were this year. Because if you take a look, we didn't tank, obviously, in the last couple of years. But you look at 2018, 2019, right? Everybody saw at the beginning of the 2018 season, we weren't that good, obviously. But coming off of, the bye week, we were better than we were in the first half. And, everybody's saying, oh, this team's going to be, maybe competitive with the right additions. We did nothing in free agency, and we actually stocked up on draft picks. What happened? We were 4-12, and our defense got worse. So that's what happens, when you accumulate more draft picks. But the Giants are in that position where they need to make like 4 key upgrades, and then they could be a competing team.
Listen, my argument isn't and has never been that the Giants should tank for Trevor. If the Giants are put in a position where they're winning games and Daniel Jones is showing promise, and we can just fill some holes with like a little bit later of a pick, then I say fine. But if you're in the position where you keep getting close in games and little things are losing it, especially if Daniel Jones keeps throwing interceptions, not throwing touchdowns, fumbling the ball, if he keeps doing that and you land the first pick in the draft, I'd say go ahead, trade Daniel Jones for whatever you can get and take Trevor Lawrence, just because Trevor Lawrence is generational talent. He's the most sought-out quarterback prospect since Peyton Manning, I'd say. Maybe Andrew Luck has as much hype, but I don't even think Andrew Luck had this much hype. He's a guy that you get, and he's going to be solid. You just do. He's going to be solid. He's a winner. I mean, he's generational talent. I don't think the Giants should take any other QB. No way. But I definitely think that if they're in the position to take Trevor Lawrence, you take him. I do not think that they should trade away that pick for a bunch of later picks. It doesn't work. Trevor Lawrence will make the team so much better. Daniel Jones is fine. He's not a great quarterback who's in a shitty situation. He's a quarterback who does his job and plays decent, but he was never supposed to be the focal point of the offense. Daniel Jones, you're supposed to go in there, get his job done, and have Saquon be the focal point of the offense. I just think that if you land the first pick in the draft, you take Trevor Lawrence, even if it means you'll be bad for one extra year than you were supposed to. At the end of the day, when you have a full built roster, who do you think's more likely to win a Super Bowl, Daniel Jones or Trevor Lawrence? To me, it's Trevor Lawrence. He's just, I mean, like, he's the most talked about guy since Peyton Manning. Like, he's a pretty, to me, he's a hit. Like, the guy won a national championship as a freshman.
Yeah, and the mistake Dave Gettleman made, and a lot of, I would say, maybe some Giants fans who still have hope in Saquon Barkley. Listen, Saquon Barkley, he's generational talent, but unfortunately, in my opinion, is being wasted. But you don't build around a running back, you build around a quarterback.
Yes.
And that's what the Giants need to do and focus that moving forward. Listen, and going back to what I said about, disrespecting Daniel Jones and wanting all this stupid tanking talk, the GM, in my opinion...
It's not about the tanking, though. It's not. Yeah, it's a simple question. It's a simple question.
No, I know.
If the Giants put themselves in a position where they go 1-15, do you want them to take Trevor Lawrence if they have the first pick?
If it's because of Daniel Jones, yeah.
The Giants are not going to go 1-15 because of anyone else but Daniel Jones.
What was I going to say?
They're just not.
No, I forgot what I was going to say. Hold on. Let me try to gain that thought back.
They're a good enough team to win games. They're a good enough team to win games. That's all I have to say on the matter. I say if you're in a position to pick first, you take Trevor Lawrence. Otherwise, you don't take the QB. You fill holes and you move on.
Unless you're magically in first for some unknown reason. But obviously, Trevor Lawrence is Trevor Lawrence. And again, build around your quarterback, and you will be fine. But if it's the quarterback's fault, I could understand going for another quarterback.
There's tons of things. Just like you can't blame everything on the quarterback, you can't blame everything on the pieces surrounding the quarterback. You know what I mean? It goes two ways. And I think that quarterbacks get way too much credit when they're in their greatness, and they're way too much they get way too much credit when the team is bad. And I think Daniel Jones is getting way too much credit now, but at the same time, if the Giants play well, it will never be because of his fantastic play. It will be because he's doing his job and not making mistakes.
Basically,
where
another
Trevor
Eli.
Lawrence is one of those guys once every 20 years that comes around. Once every 20 years, two of them come around. We've already got Mahomes. The next guy is up to be seen. Maybe it's Lamar Jackson. Maybe it's Josh Allen. Could be Trevor Lawrence. You want to get that guy.
You know what's going to make me so happy? Let's just say Daniel Jones, he doesn't finish spectacular, but he doesn't finish horrible. Say Dave Gettleman's fired, all right? The new GM, I think, will be smart enough to not take a quarterback next year and say, this guy needs help. Select a wide receiver, select an offensive lineman, or maybe we take a defensive piece like a cornerback 2 or an inside linebacker 2. That will make me so happy to piss off other Giant fans who think quarterback is the whole problem of this team.
Well, if I'm a GM, a new GM, I want the new GM to take Trevor Lawrence if they're picking one. I want him to be like, yeah, we should.
If they're picking one.
Yeah, if they're picking one. Otherwise, you have to assume that you can't value Trey Lance or Justin Fields over Daniel Jones.
No, I know. And, obviously there's other Giant fans who want to replace, Daniel Jones with Lance and, Justin Fields. But I'm just saying, like, for, the Giant fans and whoever else thinks, let's, try to trade up for Trevor. Let's say Jets get first pick, we get third, fourth, or maybe even fifth. Trade up some of your best pieces. They're not going to do that because, number one, the Jets would not be giving up Trevor.
Put yourself in the position to take him because of poor play, you take him. That's the end of the discussion for me.
Exactly. Unfortunately, a lot of Giants fans do not feel that way.
Yes, but I would also not hesitate to say to the people that would say, I know one of our friends is a big believer in if they get first pick, they should trade it away for an abundance of future picks and packages and whatnot.
This is not necessarily easy. I don't know
agree
when
with
the last.
that just as much as I don't agree with the whole tanking idea.
I don't know when the last time any team did that.
Trade away the first pick for a bunch of stuff.
I don't remember, honestly.
No, I don't think the Giants would do it, but I'm saying I know there are people who are saying do that.
Yeah. We'll see what happens, but obviously during the off season, this is going to be a whole nother topic. Jordan, thanks for coming on, my man.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, that's the end of the episode. Thank you guys. On Thursday, we'll have Vincent Rapasardi on. He's a big analytic Giant fan. Maybe Jordan, I'll have you come on. We could have a whole discussion. Maybe he'll introduce us to some new analytics. I had him on before, and we'll see where everything goes. But thank you guys for listening, watching, supporting. I'm going to be live on Sportscaster next Monday night with two friends, really one brother, to watch the Giants game on Sportscaster, not on YouTube, because YouTube actually, it censors the fact that you actually turn up the TV when you're not supposed to. Sportscaster doesn't do that. Thank you guys. Thank you, Jordan. We'll see you on Friday.